Good afternoon. My name is Benson Tam. Welcome to the 2021 Smart City Tech Week. This is an annual flagship event of Venturous Group on Smart City Tech. My name is Benson Tam, founder and chairman of Venturous Group, which is China's leading smart city tech group. So we are gathered here today to talk about China's leading role in smart city. So the budget next year in China is about $4 trillion. About 800 Chinese cities are upgrading to smart cities. So with our unique approach as investor, new business creator, as well as operator, with deep tech, we hope we can enable cities to become smarter. We hope we can seize this massive market opportunity and to help people enjoy a better life living in the city. So today's topic is smart city management. Our keynote speaker, Feng Yong, will give us a presentation on this topic, and then we will have a fireside chat with two panelists. So without further ado, let me introduce today's guests. First of all, Mr. Feng Yong. I'm so familiar with your English name, so I will address you as Frank. Frank is the CEO of iSSTech. So we have been friends for 14 years now. We have witnessed how iSSTech derived from iSoft Stone in so many projects on smart city over the years. So Frank, the floor is yours. Thank you, Benson. My name is Feng Yong. I am the CEO of iSSTech. iSSTech is a company that provides digital and smart solutions for smart cities. And what is at the center of our business is data. So iSSTech spun out from iSoft Stone in 2018. We provided services in over 170 cities across the country. We are a close partner to Huawei and Alibaba. So I'm really glad that we have this opportunity to share with you the challenges and the practice in building smart cities across the country. Thank you, Frank. I would like to introduce one of our panelists today, Mr. Feng Kui, who is the Secretary General from the China Center for Urban Development at NDRC. Secretary General Feng, please do a self-introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad that I have this opportunity to join this session. So the China Center for Urban Development reports to NDRC. We are a research institute dedicated to urban and rural reform and development. So green city, smart city, cultural city, and innovative city, these are at the core of our efforts. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Feng. So Our second panelist for today, Dr. Li Dong, who is with the China New Urbanization Research Institute at Tsinghua University. He is a senior engineer and fellow. Dr. Li, please introduce yourself. Thank you, Benson, for the invite, and really a privilege to join this session. So we are a university dedicated to scientific research. My research institute is for studying everything that goes into the urbanization process of China, from the population migration from rural to urban China, and how we can improve the environment and industries in the cities to make sure they are sustainable. So we have been carrying out a lot of studies and research on this topic. So I'm really glad to be part of today's session. Thank you, Dr. Li. So Frank will take it away with his presentation on the details that go into smart city management. Of course, when it comes to smart cities, we need to rely on technologies, which might be an unfamiliar topic to many of the audiences, and some cutting edge technology might be covered. So Frank, please, the floor is all yours. Thank you, Benson. Thank you, everyone. My presentation today is a new era for digital city governance in China. Thank you for being here. So this smart city endeavor in China started in 2012, but the truth is back in 2008, IBM proposed this concept of smart planet. So at that time, it was a groundbreaking concept. But it was not until 2012 when China began to embark on this journey of smart city building, when the Ministry of Housing and the Rural Urban Development started the smart city pilot program. As smart cities evolve, many cities and government agencies and all walks of life have become part of this initiative. And in 2015, we proposed this concept of new smart cities. So now we are talking about digital China. We have seen this evolution of development of infrastructure to providing diverse and inclusive livelihood services for the population, and coordinated management of infrastructure and smart and effective management of the cities. So that means we are going to digitize our cities across the board. With the rollout of the Smart City Initiative, we must talk about digital economy, the industrialization, digitization, data governance, and data commercialization. Altogether, 4 pillars which support a digital economy and digital society. So when we talk about smart cities today, we talk more about the governance of a smart city. So now you're looking at this whole history from 2012 to 2020 and 2021, China's rapid growth in this smart city initiative across these different pilot cities and investment that goes into this endeavor from 50 billion to 100 billion. This is part of the national strategies, especially in recent years, as China promotes the new infrastructure building, big data, cloud computing, smart cities initiative is now presented with a new opportunity. So smart city is not an old concept to China, and we have accomplished a lot along the way, but there are still issues that we need to address. First, I want to talk about this enhanced capabilities to manage cities based on different grids. Things are getting more digitized, and we are providing more visibility into how a city runs. And this interoperable system plays a massive role with the support of end devices like cell phones. So people can just use their cell phone and go to this interoperable system and to avoid any trips to the government agencies. They can take care of everything on their cell phone, and they really benefit from this convenience of digitization and smart city public services, especially in a post-COVID era. We realize that digitization is an important means for the prevention of the outbreak. For example, the health code is very popular and helpful at this special times, providing great convenience to the Chinese people. But we cannot overlook one shortcoming. Many cities now have this so-called city brain, which is very expensive, but they hasn't proven to be very effective. They're not fully autonomous when it comes to making judgments or decisions. They mostly serve as a dashboard for data and information, and haven't been able to identify the relations among data. Much data is invalid. They haven't gained much insight into the data they collected. So this city brain is pretty much demanded. So on that, iSSTech is a service provider for smart city tech.
So we decide to build smart hubs in the cities. We think the most important thing in a city is the interconnectedness of data, right? So be it smart cities or not, this is the foundation. And we also need to make data more easily visualized, so that we can not only just perceive data, but we can also have insights into data and really understand what it means, what these data mean. So we have 3 platforms. one of the platforms is what we call TOM base, or literally city database or foundation. So this is where we combine all of the data, including temporal data, spatial data, and internet data. And then we break down the walls between all these data silos. And we also have a city twin platform. Another platform we have is city simulation. So simply put, data is the foundation. And what we can do is City Twin does a simulation of what is going on in the city. And we can also use simulation to forecast what's possibly going to happen tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. So through these three platforms, the data platform, the simulation platform, and the data twin platform, can we really make the smart city vitalized and make it really smart? So from the government's perspective, how would they like smart cities to be like? A lot of things are consistent with what I said. Firstly, they need a very grid-based management system that has a lot of finesse and everything is visualized. They also want to have provide one-stop services so that residents can have very convenient services and their issues resolved very easily. And as a mayor, the mayor definitely cares about things like urban security, internet security, and how to prevent disasters from happening, natural disasters. So from the perspective of a mayor of a city, these are what they cares, what a mayor cares about. This is also where we're coming from. And this is how we go about building a smart city. So again, smart city is not just about the infrastructure. Two things are really important. One is one-stop services for the residents. The other is one-stop management system. This is from the perspective of the government. It provides more convenience for the government to govern the city. So this is both top-down and bottom-up. So what I would like to elaborate on is one-stop management. So for one-stop services, we have already had a lot of personal experiences through apps like WeChat, but with the one-stop management system, this is something that's more unfamiliar to most of you. So I would like to delve a little bit into it. So what is it? It is about combining all kinds of tools, using all kinds of servers, sensors, and networks, both software and hardware, to do real-time monitoring of what's going on in the city, so that we can detect potential loopholes, security risks. So basically, it's for us to get a sense of what's going on and to prevent things from happening and to preempt when necessary. So what does this one web means when it comes to one-stop management or governance? There's one software, one web for the software, one web for the hardware, and one virtualized web. And we're also combining, so basically, there's three webs really. One comprised of software, one comprised of hardware, one comprised of virtualized webs, including city management, utilities, etc. So uniformed management means we need to look at the state of the city and to get a sense of what needs to be done in terms of governance. We also need to have city operation centers. And these are necessary for improving the efficiency of city governance. So we not only need to have a software web, hardware web, and a virtual web, we also need to have city operations centers, rather. So without these city operations centers, it's going to be really difficult to make these cities a reality and really solve real life issues and problems. So again, this graph or this figure shows the hierarchy. So there's city operation centers at the city level, then at the district level, street level. So only by doing this kind of multi-dimensional network can we really make the city smart. At the end of the day, what we want to achieve is to use data plus artificial intelligence to govern the city properly. So be it digital twin or simulation, the purpose is to make the city governance more reliant on data and AI so that we can efficiently govern the city matters. So again, we need a software web, hardware web, and a virtual web. But most important is building out smart hubs for a city. So smart hubs are going to be standard configuration for smart city infrastructure going forward. We talked a lot about concepts and methodology, but we also did a lot of practice. Like I said earlier, we helped to build 170 something smart cities in China. Some of them are systematic, some are just partial. Parts of the city were made smart. So I would like to use the city of Yangzhou from Jiangsu as an example. We made a system for them. And we also made the 3 webs that I mentioned earlier, and the city operation centers, and a smart hub for the city of Yangzhou. And so we call it the Yangzhou template. Yangzhou offers a lot of delicacy, a lot of good food, and there's a lot of traditional goodies about Yangzhou. And Yangzhou is not only known for these traditional things, but they're also known for their smartness now. So this is a demo. A lot of the data is visualized and is perceived and sensed by sensors. And so it can be sensed in real time and governed in real time. The next case I would like to talk to you about is a community case. This is in the city of Guiyang, and we know that Guiyang is the capital of IDCs or data centers in China, and Huaguoyuan or flower and fruit garden is a very large community with 1 million residents. So this population is actually bigger than a lot of cities in China. And we used the concept of smart cities, but we also utilized and embedded a lot of tools and devices that are closer to people's lives. So we were able to achieve the governance in a lot of detail in the everyday life of people. So we are not only able to govern the city from a high level, but we are also able to govern the streets, the specific communities, and the methodologies and ideas are highly unified behind it all. Lastly, I would like to recap the most important things for a digitalized government. So we need to base everything off of mechanisms and really grasp these 5 things. They are organization, mechanism. We need to have an overall view or Grand Canyon view. And we also need to keep innovating models and have innovative technology and sustainable, and innovative operations. Only by combining these 5 things can we really make a city smart. So that was my presentation, and that was our thoughts and thinking and practice on the part of iSSTech on smart cities. Thank you very much, Benson. That's it from my side. I'm done. So why don't we chat a bit? So it's been around, you've been doing this for 10 years, and you are present in 800 something residential quarters or communities. So you must have acquired a lot of data. So here's my first question. How much data do you own or do you have? And what's the granularity like? And how do we ensure data security and to prevent data impeachment and the protection of people's privacy? I think this is a question of interest to a lot of people. Frank. So I think city data is very enriched. It has a lot of dimensions. So, firstly, we have organizational data in a city, be it people or enterprises, buildings, or economic activities. They all have organizational data within the scope of city governance. For example, there's a database for demographics and population data, and there's databases for other types of data. Secondly, for things like coordinates, geographic conditions, geographic locations, and temperatures, there's also information on those. There's also what we call flow data on things like sensors, IoT devices, etc., and from surveillance monitors. And we also have internet data. As people live in the city, when you shop online, or when you do activities in virtual communities, virtual spaces, a lot of data will be generated, and there's value attached to the data. And among the data, there's going to be a lot of engagement, a lot of interactions. The data would impact other data. So primary data will generate secondary data. So a whole slew of activities done by someone will generate a lot of data. So it's really hard to gauge how much data there is for these cities. But if you just look at one single data point, it might not be important. However, if you connect the dots, connect all of the data points, then there will be huge value behind it. Let's say, in order to crack a case for public security bureaus, or in order to understand someone's behaviors, day-to-day routines and behaviors, or basically these data have huge commercialization value. But the biggest challenge, like you said, is data security and data privacy. So there's two things to it. So the data could be, disclosed or leaked in an illegal way by way of hackers, or our data might be acquired by someone or a business, and that business would know our favorites, our likes and dislikes, and whether or not we are sick. So these two kinds of data, there are real security risks, but we have different methodologies to solve these two issues. Firstly, in terms of preventing data breach and leakage, we can use tools like firewalls and tools to guard off hackers. And this is a very urgent. A lot of companies are developing these tools.
On the other hand, when it comes to the improper use of data, even if the data is coming from legal sources, if the data includes user profiling, So that's also private data. So we need to make sure the data is standardized by introducing new legislation. That's why China has proposed many new acts on data privacy. So we need to rely both on technology and on legislation. So your answer is that China is working hard on protecting data and reducing some of the old practice. So Frank, let me switch gears here. I know that lately you entered into a strategic partnership with the Shenzhen city government, and the project will be in a quite famous residential community in Shenzhen city. Yes, so with so many smart cities in place, I think technology-wise or methodology-wise, there's been a lot of work accomplished. But one important thing is to achieve this economic closed loop. Who will be the operators? Who will create value? So a new concept has been proposed, is called smart city management or governance, and to have a new organization that will take care of the management of smart cities while creating new value. So in the Luohu district of Shenzhen City, we are testing the waters. So on top of building this Luohu district into a smart district, we'll also help them manage and operate the local communities, making sure the system can work in favor of the owners and create value for them. And to hold people responsible for the outcomes. So we're still in the thick of it. We will report back 2 years from now. So Frank, so your project is based in Luohu district, and then to its south, there is Hong Kong, which plans to build a local city hub, which is to the south of Luohu district. These two geographies are connected. So maybe there will be new chemistry coming from joint efforts on both sides going forward. So I would like to invite our two panelists to shed some new light on smart city management. So let's wait for the other two panelists. Hi, Mr. Feng and Dr. Li. As Frank mentioned, there are a lot of opportunities for smart city tech. So Mr. Feng, as a senior researcher on smart city for almost a decade at NDRC, you have a lot of experience with city clusters, rural and urban China building. So when it comes to smart city management, can you share with us your takeaways or your insights into this topic? Maybe he's having a technical issue. Dr. Li, do you want to take that? Yes, we can hear you. Yes, I totally agree with Frank on his understanding of one-stop services and interoperable systems. One-stop service provides all types of government services to the local population, and interoperable system helps the city manage transportation, urgencies, and everything that happens in a city. So on top of these two angles, we also need to make sure that we make the strategy when we plan for the city, we should incorporate more digital governance because it could be very complex when it comes to managing a city, regardless how the government wants for the city development. We need to mobilize the local residents, the population, businesses to join the efforts. So we need to have a well-defined governance model or logics. In the past, the approach was pretty much top-down, but going forward, city clusters will put their heads together and to share their ideas on better governing a city. So I think the direction is city governance. Dr. Lee, you mentioned a very novel concept, this co-governance concept and participation from all sectors and all parts of society, and to delegate the power and rights to local communities. Can you maybe elaborate on that? Yes, governance is quite a new concept. The Chinese are very familiar to management instead of governance. So in the future, we need to have a changed model or mindset. We need to have a shared philosophy or a shared value. And so digitization and data transmission play a vital role in this effort. It seems like we're having a bit of a hiccup with Mr. Feng's connection. So let's continue with Frank. I think when people talk about technologies, and we talk about interactions among machines, so they can become more intelligent and to have the machine-to-machine communication. Because we will shift from the top-down approach to this new governance framework, which supports collaboration to better manage a city. So what is your take on that, Frank? I think Dr. Lee made a good point. Today, we still have a very much centralized governance model in cities. It is pretty much led by the governments through these one-stop services or the interoperable systems. But when it comes to the next generation model of city governance side, Frank, please continue. So going forward, there will be new methodologies that go into city governance. We will have this automation or maybe a hybrid model of both centralized and decentralized city governance. But we believe digital services and solutions will bring more convenience to city operation. Different networks will collect feedbacks from all stakeholders in a city and to engage with managers of the city. and to have a framework that combines these technologies and engagement and participation of all parts of societies. So that is the future way to go. So Frank and Dr. Lee, I have a second question about this interoperable or one-stop service system. How many steps are there? I believe it won't happen overnight. So what is the biggest challenge and opportunity facing city management or governance going forward? Dr. Lee, do you want to take that first? So this one-stop solution from iSSTech is not my expertise, so I will defer to Frank on this topic. As for future challenges, I think one of the biggest ones is COVID-19 pandemic and what is happening in the macro economy in the past 3 decades with the rapid development in real estate and land acquisition. We have seen a very booming economy in China, but we need to find new ways to revitalize our economy. And I believe local governments will be very restricted in terms of their financial capabilities. They have many different priorities like infrastructure or education that require government investments. In the past, it was dependent on land acquisition, selling land to make more government revenue. But going forward, I think it is up to the local businesses to contribute more tax revenues to the local governments. So how can we shift from this land-based local economy to a booming economy where businesses are thriving? That will pose the biggest challenge to cities that requires funding, talents, and digital solutions and tools. So that is my take on this topic. So on that note, we can talk about data since we're in face with so many challenges. So Frank and Dr. Lee, any ideas on this topic? What new values do you believe data will provide to the interoperable systems?
How do I say this? I think the value of the data is not tapped into at all. So there's two phases. Firstly, initially there was no data in the cities. For example, we didn't have a whole lot of sensors. We didn't have surveillance monitors, and we didn't have the lifestyle apps like WeChat and Meituan. So data was really scarce back then. But now we are in a different stage. We have an overload or over explosion of data. And the sensors are constantly pumping out data. But our abilities to analyze and process the data is far lagging behind. So the biggest challenge we're faced with right now is our ability to process data and how the data processing capabilities are far lagging behind the data generation. So we have a lot of so-called junk or garbage data that's really inundating everything and making us not be able to see things clearly. So we want to have sources of various sources of data generate value is what we need to tackle. Benson, what do you think, Dr. Lee? Dr. Lee. Yeah, of course, data is critical. Everybody knows that. But before data is turned into a real means of production, we still have a lot of challenges to tackle. Primarily, the ownership of data, because data is highly replicable once it's generated. So who does the data belong to, and how is it defined legally? That is a very big technical issue that we need to address, and we haven't really done that. Even though we have data exchanges, for example, there's this Shanghai Data Exchange, but none of the exchanges have really been able to operate like stock exchanges and to function accordingly. The value chain of data, the extraction of data value hasn't been tapped into. So there's still a lot to be done. Benson, hi, Mr. Feng, you're back, right? Mr. Feng, sorry, my connection was sketchy. So Frank did a very good presentation. I already listened to his presentation, but during discussion, my network was working up. So sorry about that. Benson, no worries. So after hearing what you heard, what are 1 or 2 points that you really want to raise here? Mr. Feng Kui. I think in terms of data governance, we've already made huge progress, and data as a means of production is actually playing out. But as our understanding of what cities mean deepens, and as the volume of challenges grows, we need to be open-minded about governance, and we also need to have a lot of humility. I saw a lot of cities, when it comes to things like one-stop services and one-stop governance, a lot of things have been achieved, but some of the figures are known to us, but some stats are really not known to us. And there are areas that we don't really know that we don't know. Especially when it comes to things like how do we really satisfy people's needs, and how can we really put ourselves in the shoes of the residents to build a better city, a better world. I think there's still a lot of room for growth in those aspects. So we talked about digital twin, city simulation. We are still at a very preliminary stage for everything. So there's still a lot to be done. Benson, Mr. Feng, very well said. Let me recap really quickly. So Frank, you were saying, you were talking about one-stop governance, and Dr. Lee, you were saying participation of governance, and Mr. Feng Kui, you were talking about the digital twin, simulation, etc. All of these things are very leading edge and cutting edge technologies and ideas. They are also pretty novel to me. And when Frank, you were talking about these things, a thought flew by my mind, and I was like, oh, cities are really becoming aware. Cities start to have its own consciousness. Just like how humans started to have their consciousness millions of years ago. And when people became aware and conscious of their environment, a lot of opportunities would emerge. Like Mr. Feng Kui was saying, cities and are becoming conscious as residents are. So here comes my next question. In the context of this, we talked about digital twin, digital simulation. These are pretty new terms. So what big impacts will digital twins and digital simulation have on the cities? Because these are pretty unfamiliar concepts. Who's going to take it first? Or Mr. Feng Kui, do you want to go first? Because you had technical issues earlier. Mr. Feng Kui. I think in terms of their significance, these two technologies have greatly expanded of our understanding of what cities are. Previously, cities were just the physical objects that we were able to see, but with the emergence or advent of digital twins and simulation, we can do a lot of imagination. We can imagine what cities are going to be like years from now. And in terms of building a better life and tackling very complicated situations and making sustainable development for the cities, those two technologies are definitely gonna make contributions there. And also, simulation and digital twin will tackle very realistic issues here and now. For example, COVID prevention and the tackling of natural disasters like floods and droughts. So it will make our lives safer. Benson, what about you, Dr. Lee? What do you think the biggest impacts these two technologies will have on cities in the future? Dr. Lee, I think if a digital twin and simulation can really be achieved, then it's definitely going to be revolutionary. But I'm a realist. I think we still have a long way to go before we really get there. So we can take a look at digital twin. It came from industrial manufacturing and came from assembly lines. And on an assembly line, we can use all kinds of sensors to digitize the process and to perceive what's going on. However, when it's applied in a city, the elements, the number of elements is significantly bigger. We have man-built, the built environment. We have natural elements. So if we really want to make digital twin do its magic, we still need to solve a lot of technical issues. That's just my personal take. It's going to take time before we get there. Benson, what year are we looking here? Dr. Lee, maybe a decade, not a few years. A few years will not cut it. But within this decade, we are not just simply waiting. We're not just sitting around. So we should not just focus on everything, but we should focus on pick out the most important systems and do digital twins on these systems, such as transportation system, energy system, and security system, and the systems relating to decision-making on the part of the governments. So we pick out the most important parts from these systems and apply the digital twin technology first. And then we make some breakthroughs there before we go out and branch out to other areas. Benson, thank you. So you talked about means of production, right? So Frank, on this point, you said data will generate value. So all of these buildings, factories, facilities, they will all play a role in the city, right? So in your view, you talked about the example in Shenzhen and some other examples. What new vitality will that bring out? Frank, I think what Mr. Feng Kui said made a lot of sense. In the era of big data, we not only understood a lot of things that we understood before, and we also now understand a lot of things that we did not understand before, especially when it comes to things like people's needs. Only with sufficient data will we understand what people truly need. So be it a simulated city or digital twin city, it's all about that. And the same goes for smart cities in a metaverse. So By way of these technologies, we are basically making a living being out of a city. And we will have deeper insights into into the needs of people living in a city. And so I believe a lot of value will be generated for things like manufacturing and production. Benson, that's right. I think we're about time. Let me recap really quickly here. We talked about one-stop services, one-stop governance, the participation into governance by the general population, and also digital twins and the digital simulation. They are all very important concepts. So 3 points here. Firstly, cities are becoming programmable cities. Second, cities are becoming highly automated. All of the services you need will become increasingly automated. Third is individualized cities. So the remote control of your city is within your fingertips. You can build cities into whichever way you desire. So for each person, the city they live in will be a different experience from other people. So the opportunities are infinite, from being merely an economy to how the entire society is organized. So there's a lot of dimensions here. So we talked a lot about smart city governance today. If you missed out on the sessions yesterday and the day before, we talked about smart computing and smart buildings yesterday. The company Oyana, don't worry about that. Make sure you don't miss out on tomorrow's presentation, which will be on the topic of smart energy. Of course, the CEO of NGA will give the presentation. Everybody is so concerned about the carbon peak and the carbon neutral topic. So we're going to have the presentation at the same time, 5 p.m. Beijing time. And going forward, the presentations that you missed out on will be replayed. And at the end of it, we will recap and talk about what investment opportunities exist. Again, my name is Benson Tan. I'm the founder and chairman of the Venturous Group, and we are a leader in the investment of smart cities. Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Lee. Thank you, Frank Feng. Thank you, Mr. Feng Kui. Thank you so much for your inputs. It was wonderful. Thank you.